I always wanted to say that one of these movies, but they won't let me.
He's the editor, though, isn't he?
Yeah, he is, yeah.
Yeah.
He's basically if Rick Sanchez was a real person who became a film editor.
I'm okay with that. I'd watch that.
Yeah.
I'd watch the shit out of that.
He's definitely good company.
Welcome. You are entering into a strange dimension. A dimension where narratives from across space and time come together. Narratives that could have, might have, or should have been all exist here in one space. This is CineCasters Ultimate Timeline.
Hello, and welcome to CineCasters, the show where we watch movies and dissect them, deconstruct them, and reconstruct them as something else that was, possibly an improvement. But that's for you to decide. Anyway, I'm joined as always by my very good friend, Andrew DeYoung.
Yo.
And I am Nathaniel Nate Draper. And we are today going to be doing the 2013 movie Oblivion, starring Tom Cruise.
Starring Tom Cruise. This is
Featuring
not
the
our
music.
first Tom Cruise either.
No, I was thinking about that actually as we were watching it, or as I was watching it, that we've done a number of movies that feature Tom Cruise, actually. I think. War of the Worlds.
War of the Worlds, that's the one that comes to mind.
And Minority. Did we do Minority Report?
No, I don't think we've done
We talked about
Minority Report.
Okay, yeah.
So I think it's only these two.
For some reason in my mind there was another movie. Okay, maybe I'm mistaken. But anyway,
not to my knowledge,
this movie does have Tom Cruise in it. It also features one of my favorite electronic artists, M83, doing the soundtrack.
Oh, cool. I'm not familiar, but that's awesome.
Okay, yeah. Actually,
the soundtrack was good.
Yeah. So he did an album. I think it's called Before the Dawn Heals Us. There's an album it's got a lot of tracks on it that are very cinematic.
Yeah.
In their tone. So I thought it was actually a very good. I'd kind of been waiting. I remember when this movie came out actually that I wanted to see it specifically for that.
That's awesome.
And then I thought, well, I could just listen to the soundtrack.
Yeah.
So
I liked the soundtrack. It wasn't anything like overwhelmingly like original. Like I wasn't struck by the soundtrack, but I was like, this is good. Yeah.
What? It wasn't, let's say, as fresh, so Daft Punk with Tron.
Yeah.
To me, that felt really fresh.
That was like, ooh.
Oh, yeah, exactly. That was like, okay.
That's what I'm saying when it hits. But I will also say there is something for, as a solo artist, especially if they're like an electronic artist, and you do a whole, like, I was never at any point like, what am I listening to? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It was more along the lines of like, I was like, this fits, which is also really good too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I just remember the last time we did sort of a sci-fi on this level was Passengers.
Oh, Thomas Newman.
Yeah, and there was like some string work in there that was like really different in terms of like sci-fi space movie, and that really I do remember being struck by that.
Oh, that score is exceptional. I mean, it's also we're talking about one of the tops, composers. Like who knows who really. Actually, there's a really for anyone who's interested in podcasts, which I assume you might be if you're listening to us.
I would hope
there's
so.
There's another great podcast called the Team Deacons podcast, and it's Roger Deacons, cinematographer, and his wife, and they do James Deacons, and they interview filmmakers, composers, and they actually do an interview with Thomas Newman that's very interesting.
Yo, I got to check that one out.
Yeah, I would highly recommend. The interview with Thomas Newman is really cool. Anyway, so back to Oblivion. I'd like to hear what are your thoughts on sort of what you thought was working for it. We talked a little bit about the music, obviously, but what are some things that you thought were working and didn't work for it?
I like the overall plot of this movie. It feels like fun to watch, and I'm engaged with the characters. One of the things that I think this movie has going for it that I think it should have maybe leaned into a little bit more is the fact that it's only like an ensemble cast.
Okay.
And by that I mean like there are 5 to 6 characters that are important.
Okay.
Everyone else is not important. Right. And I kind of wish the movie had leaned into that, where it had been like, we're going to do this whole high, concept movie around sci-fi, you know what I mean? Like sci-fi space movie, and only had like this many actors in it.
Right.
and just like leaned on that. But they have this whole like the scabs, the humans that are still on Earth, and they're like a bunch of background characters. And one of the reasons that didn't work for me is because there's this big, epic sort of scene where the drones show up and start like massacring these humans. This is maybe towards the
it's like in the last third quarter of the movie. Yeah,
in the last act, and I was like, I know why this matters, but I feel like it doesn't matter because I'm so focused on dealing with like Jack and Victoria and Julia and then Beach. And then, you know what I mean? As well as Sally or Mission Control. And then, I guess, the Jaime Lannister actor.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's 6 characters right there. And I was like, seeing all of these background characters get massacred was like, oh no, like, but I also, from like a storytelling perspective, didn't care as much. Until you see Morgan Freeman's character, like, get hit. And then it matters, you know what I mean? So I was like, this feels gratuitous. Not because of the loss of life, but because we're just watching a bunch of people die, and it doesn't matter to the story. And so the way they try to make it hit is by having it be, like, bombastic and brutal.
Right.
And I felt like that didn't work for me.
Yeah, actually, that's it's interesting. That is the section of the movie that I actually skipped through.
Yeah, I was like, I don't care about
where
this.
I checked out. Yeah.
I think the concepts in this movie are really great, but I think it doesn't do much with them.
I would agree. That was actually a note I had too.
Yeah. Because I liked watching this movie. I was like, man, that's super smart. Oh, man, I can't wait to see what they do with that. But they don't really do much with it. It becomes sort of this, in terms of like Joseph Campbell, it's a classic Joseph Campbell story. It's the hero's journey, right?
Right. Or it's supposed to be, yeah.
Yeah, but to me, it's like sci-fi should have, like, when you go into the deep dark place and you like realize, in the hero's journey, you go to the deep dark place or hell or whatever it's called, and you learn something or get something that helps you come out, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But in sci-fi kind of twists on that. You think it's going to be go to the deep dark place, and it's usually in sci-fi, generally, some kind of, if it's hard sci-fi, the revelation actually becomes something that changes everything from the descent.
Right. Okay.
Right? So the descent into the dark place becomes recontextualized by this shift in what we've seen. Right? Or this revelation. And so when in the hero's journey in sci-fi, when they come out, when they do the ascent, towards their goal or towards their victory, everything is recontextualized. And often, sometimes, instead of being like descending into the dark place and then finding the thing, it's descending into the dark place. Everything is revealed, and you realize like the dark place is actually the light place, or you know what I mean? Like things get turned on their head in sci-fi in a way that doesn't happen. And I felt like we got that kind of revelation, but it wasn't. It wasn't world changing.
Yes,
it didn't change the trajectory of the story. I guess if that's one way you could put it.
I was going to agree. Yeah, I'll go on a bit. I'll talk about that a bit more. But yeah, keep going.
No, that's where I'm at with that. That's just like my thoughts on it. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. So, was there anything else in terms of like things that you thought worked versus didn't work that you wanted to talk about before I get in?
Yeah. I thought the effects looked really good. I was invested in the characters. My big thing was just I wish they would have done more with the concepts. I also will say that I really like the world building in this, where they like show these old buildings and like bridges and whatnot that are like broken down, and I was like, this looks really cool. I just was kind of frustrated that it was again in the States.
Right. Yeah. It's always in America.
And I was like, I think it would have been really cool if you'd set it in Europe, because there are lots of like very famous landmarks all through Europe, and they're also not that far away.
That's a good point, actually. That's a very good point.
So you could easily show like how, like maybe one of the exclusion zones or whatever is, if you set it in London, then the exclusion zone is like the continent, and then you could show off like Amsterdam is not that far away from London, especially if you're flying in that cool helicopter thing.
Yeah. Well, that is actually one thing that did occur to me that I'm not sure if I'm wrong in my understanding of landmarks, but at one point I thought he was on a motorbike going by the Golden Gate Bridge.
No, I'm pretty sure there are several bridges in New York City, because this is, I'm pretty sure, set in New York City.
See, that's why I'm not sure, because it looked. My first thought was, oh, is this supposed to be the Golden Gate Bridge? Well, that wouldn't make sense. He's on the other side of America now, and I thought,
no, I'm pretty sure the whole
maybe
quadrant,
it is an American bridge.
I'm pretty sure the whole quadrant is supposed to be like New York, like set in New York, because they go to the stadium. They
see the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah, the Empire State Building, and then I'm assuming, because the Brooklyn Bridge is quite famous as a New York landmark.
Okay,
so.
that would make that would make more sense. That's got to be what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I also thought it was funny. There was a couple times in the movie where I thought they were making explicit references to like Tom Cruise's past movies.
With the sunglasses?
Yeah, the sunglasses for Top Gun, but also there's a point in time where he's like in the middle of the city, and I was like, this looks like Vanilla Sky.
Oh, funny. Yeah,
he's like in the middle of the city, and he's like remembering things from his past. I was like, that reminds me of Vanilla Sky. And then
I wonder, specifically with the sunglasses, I had that moment too. I was also thinking Mission Impossible.
I was thinking Top Gun with the sunglasses.
Yeah. But they do look more like the sunglasses he would have worn in Top Gun. Yeah,
and then like his hat, like the New York hat. Like I'm not super familiar with Tom Cruise's filmography, but there was a couple times where I was like, are they making deliberate references to try and trick us?
Yeah. I had wondered that too, actually.
Yeah, which is actually something that I did in my pitch.
As well. Yeah. Oh, funny. Okay, interesting. I like that.
So, I also this is a nitpick thing. The drones themselves look very visually similar to what are called the noise machines, or Nomax, from Dream Theater's 2015 album The Astonishing.
Oh, funny. Yeah.
Or 2016, but it came out right around that time. And so like every time I looked at them and the sounds they make too, I was like, there's no way Dream Theater didn't rip this off. It just looks so visually like that.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Now that you mention it, I see it now. Yeah.
As soon as I saw the drones, and I've seen this movie before, but I saw it closer to when it came out, on a friend's recommendation. So, I liked this movie. Even though I'm nitpicking, like I was having fun watching it. I cared about it. I just feel like there was a lot of concepts that didn't pan out.
Okay, interesting.
So, yeah.
Okay. Before I get into my look at it, have you seen the movie Moon?
Moon?
Yeah.
No, what year?
2009, I think. 2008.
No, I've not.
It's got Sam. Okay, so this movie to me is basically less good Moon.
Okay.
Specifically in that it deals with cloning. But I think Moon does it in a much smarter way.
Yeah.
And it occurred to me, there's a certain point in the movie where there's a reveal where it's basically the same reveal as in Moon, but Moon, like what you were saying with it takes something and then explores the full implications of it. Moon does that well. And I think one of the reasons why it doesn't quite work here is because there's almost too many things that are revealed all at the same time.
All at the same time, yeah.
And it's just too much to be able to go, okay, well, how does this then affect the inner world and the understanding that this character has of the environment around him? That like gets kind of muddied in it.
A single one of the things that I think works well, and what you're talking about, is like a single revelation that then needs to be contended with in regards to what we've seen and how that will affect what will come.
Exactly. Yes, you've hit it right on the head there. So things I think that were working very well. I think the imagery is spectacular. I think the lighting is great. I love the sort of the natural look to the lighting. The effects looked great too. Like the look of it, I was really blown away by. And I will admit, like the first half of the movie, I was genuinely intrigued. I was like, okay, where is this going? This is, but it got to that point where I kind of checked out about halfway through, because I realized like, oh, this is kind of the start of the story here. Yeah. And we're halfway through the movie, and it took us a long time to get here. But now there's almost too many. There's like they're throwing all of these twists at us. Yeah. And it's all happening at once, but we're not going to really fully explore the implications of them. So I feel like and that's where I feel like it starts to really drop for me.
Yeah.
So to get a bit more specific, I felt the whole alien plot was a bit unnecessary. The whole plan the aliens have and the aliens as characters and what they're doing, like if you really think about, and maybe it's my own lack of understanding of the layers in it, but I just felt like the alien plot to harvest resources, to clone people and create this whole thing was really convoluted.
Yeah.
I just thought that was so ridiculously convoluted.
Yeah.
I thought it would have just made more sense for the aliens to have created their own, like, alien, robot that would have done the same thing. And
yeah, it seemed to me like if all of these things are automated, why would you not just have drones that hunt down humans? Like, just make more drones instead of cloning.
Exactly. So that component to me, I just felt was really unnecessarily convoluted. The other thing is Julia wasn't really active in the story. She shows up. She's another plot twist, really. But then doesn't really do anything to drive the story.
No.
So her character is kind of unnecessary. I also thought it was the aliens are kind of presumed to be bad.
Which aliens? Hold on. Like when you say aliens,
do
you mean like the people that are actually humans, or do you mean like the
I'm talking about
control?
the TET, the mission control. It's like, okay, we and maybe it's just because I'm not as interested with like the one-dimensional villain character, which it became in the end. It's like, it's just there to harvest resources because that's what it does.
Yeah.
And I also felt like, again, this ties into the whole, there's too many twists and it's a little convoluted, but the whole memory wipe and the subconscious memory, like, I was thinking about more of like cloning and the idea of cloning, and then now he has subconscious memories. But why would he have had those? Like, why wouldn't they have just
exactly.
And he's like a clone. We don't know how many, iterations of that, but why would that be there to begin with?
I think I dealt with that in my pitch. I will also say that, like, even when I was writing my pitch, like, I felt myself rambling. You know what I mean? Because I was trying to adhere to a story that basically would have been like, how can I clean this up? And if I'd had more time, I would have like rewritten some parts, but I wanted to like focus on cleaning the story we had and focusing on one aspect.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And so.
So with mine, when you were talking about world building, I actually don't think they did nearly enough world building, in the sense that I feel like there's so many things that are left unexplored, and I get that it's a movie, but I didn't have the feeling that there was more to explore beyond it. So, for example, a movie like Lord of the Rings, okay, obviously we know there's this entire other world that was created, but watching the movie, even though it only deals with this specific set of characters, you get the sense of a greater world that's out there. I didn't really get that too much from watching this, and I feel like for something where it does lean more on the world building, there were so many other things, like the people, the scavengers, right? Like how do they work? What's their, like, okay, a great example, Mad Max, the newest Mad Max, Fury Road. That does a really great job of showing you, like, you get this sense that there's civilizations, you get the sense that there's different peoples, you get the sense that there are certain mechanics by which people operate, which to me makes up the full dimension of that movie.
And they don't even have to outright say it. Like, it's just, through the way they talk, act, and portray these characters, like, on the whole, throughout the movie, you're like, okay, there's some depth here.
Exactly, and I just felt like it just wasn't here. So if I was to, I'm gonna say, like, my pitch, as I started writing it, it just became more and more like it. I started filling in what I thought that would be, and I realized, like, oh, I think this is a pilot for a TV series.
Yeah, I was gonna say, as soon as you started saying that feels like there needs to be more world building, I was like, with all the revelations too that we see throughout the movie, it seemed to me like it would be the kind of thing that you'd want to be like, let's have a mid-season revelation. You know what I mean? Like, let's have a mid-season flip, and everyone's like, whoa, and then at the end of the season, you have another flip that leaves people on a cliffhanger.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, all of those you could still have the same twists that we have in this movie, but they need to be dealt with instead of like just thrown at each other.
Yeah, exactly. So my pilot essentially is the twist. It reveals the twist, but then it sets up that the rest of the show is dealing with the implications of what that means. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just thinking, like, right off the top of my head, like, you could easily have the first episode be all set up, and at the end of at the end of the first episode, they find the signal.
Right.
Right? And then they're like, what the heck is this signal? Right? And then you have the second episode where they're trying to figure out what the signal is, and then all of a sudden a human pod comes in, and they're like, that's a human pod. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And then from there, you continue to, like, go through, like, that's a human pod, the drones attack it, like, now we're moving at a pace, but you're doing, like, you know, one sort of solid plot point per episode as opposed to jamming it all into a 2-hour movie.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Now, I'll admit, I follow the beginning closely, and then I go off the deep end into something else.
You usually do, so... I also have a feeling, knowing you and knowing what my pitch is, this is not going to be a happy episode of CineMasters.
Well, because it's a pilot, it's... Well, I'll say there are some surprises, maybe.
Okay, because mine is not...
That's what I hope at least, yeah.
I was like, you know what? I'm going to go full-on Nathaniel here, and so I went dark.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, so I don't know if you want to go first or what there, or was there any other like small things? Because I have a couple nitpick things.
Okay, I mean, no, I feel like I went through kind of my spiel on it.
There was like, here's like a couple nitpick things from me. So there's one scene where like they're like doing a whole drone chase, and like it was set up earlier where like Jack goes through a thunderstorm and gets hit by lightning.
Yeah.
Which was not important, and then later on he like goes through the thunderstorm again, and like, you know, the drones that he's being chased by get hit by lightning, but like the way he does it is like gets out of the way of the lightning bolt so it hits the drones, and I was like, there's no way you could A, predict lightning, or B, move that fast.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I was like,
that's a good point, actually.
No. I did think that the ending was actually kind of okay. So at the ending, when like he's dead and the other him that he tied up shows up and is like, I know that he did all these things because I'm him, and that's what I would have done. And I was like, that's kind of cool to change the narration from like first person Jack Harper to like other version of Jack Harper, but because it's the same person, the narration doesn't click in until you see.
It's an interesting idea.
So that was neat, but like I also don't think they did enough with that in terms of the fact that like we see Julia look at him and be like, oh my god, it's Jack, but it's not her Jack.
Yeah,
like, so my thing with cloning, and the thing that I think this movie doesn't really understand, is once you clone someone, from that point that you've cloned them, even if you can do like a full age, like they're the same person and then you split. So like, let's take me right now. Right, I'm Janglez, 28 years old, male, whatever. I have, you know, all the education, all the memories I have. As soon as you split me now, right, we're no longer the same person. Our memories and feelings and everything are no longer the same, right? Which means that no matter what happens with this Jack Harper, he's still not the Jack Harper that is the father of her daughter. He just has the same DNA. He's not the one that like sacrificed himself. He's just... You know what I mean? So to me, even though in the movie they were like, Jack was like, I'm not him, and I was like, no, you're not. But then she's just like, you are him, and I was like, but no, he's not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think that in and of itself is an implication that could have been explored more.
Yeah, and like even that's such an interesting thing, because I think what this movie does do well, in fact, is it takes a couple of science fiction concepts and it really explores the human side of those concepts. So when we see like Jack having these, as you said, it's problematic, but having these like subconscious memories of his wife, and but then his like personal relationship with Victoria, and like we see how like she's trying to deal with this relationship that Jack has now all of a sudden assumed with Julia. It becomes like, oh, we're dealing with like cloning, but we're also dealing with the interpersonal problems of cloning, which is something I think some sci-fi movies miss, where you're like, you know, if you're going hard sci-fi, they're just like, let's deal with cloning, but you're also like, but when you deal with cloning, it's also like, how do the relationships work? You know,
Yeah,
if
exactly.
somebody were to clone me right now and there was two of me, it would be like, you know, I'm not in a relationship right now, but let's say with you, right? You're in a relationship. If somebody were to clone you, which one of you gets to stay with your partner? Or is your partner comfortable with having a relationship with two of you? In which case, are you jealous of the other you?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, these are kinds of conversations that become like, is polyamorousness something that would be that your partner would want to explore if it's two versions of you?
Right. Yeah. Now there's an interesting idea for a movie.
Yeah. I mean, these are all things where I just think like there was no implications of that. I was trying to see like, I really liked how the mission control keeps asking, are you an effective team? I also like how that question becomes more and more sinister throughout the movie.
Yeah,
Like, are you an effective team? Are you an effective team? And at the end, we see, like, Victoria's like, no, we're not an effective team, and it's, like, her personal relationship, even though there's all this sci-fi shit going on. I was like, that's a nice touch.
Yeah, exactly.
It just doesn't matter, because the sci-fi stuff didn't go far enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's it for me.
Cool. All right.
I did feel like the cabin was filled with all the stuff he'd done in past movies.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if we went through it, if we could, like, pull each of them out.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think of where's the Magnolia reference. There's got to be a Magnolia reference in there somewhere.
Well, there's a bunch of vinyl in there. There's, like, books. There's, paraphernalia. I feel like if we went through it, maybe we could. Is he in Moneyball?
No, that's Brad Pitt.
Okay, yeah.
What movie would he have been playing baseball? He does play baseball in War of the Worlds.
But doesn't he wear the New Yorker hat in War of the Worlds too?
And I don't know if I wonder if it is that.
See, now you got me thinking, like, what if this whole thing is just a reference to every movie that Tom Cruise
It's a Tom Cruise. Yeah, that's pretty funny.
Yeah. Do you want to go first, or would you like me to go first?
I'm willing to go first.
Okay, go for it.
Like I said, my version, it's a pilot. Essentially, it starts off the same. I would just have it, the world itself is a bit different. In mine, Earth is mostly destroyed. Mm-hmm. And what they're extracting, they're not extracting water, they're actually extracting oil. They're actually extracting, oil from the ground. And most of it takes place in a desert. And in my version, Jack and Victoria both take turns going out on missions. And like mine, it's told from Jack's perspective. And in my version, they both talk openly about how after they go off of Earth and they go to an off-world colony where they'll get to retire, that in my version, they're a little bit younger, maybe like early 30s. Mm-hmm. And they want to start a family together. Mm-hmm. So this is the thing that they're looking forward to. In my version, it's clear they know that there aren't aliens, but they know there are people. Basically, they were told there were people still on Earth, and they're scavengers. So who have lived on Earth and are essentially at war with them. So they have to take turns. That's why they have to be armed in order to protect themselves in case like a scavenger comes and attacks them. Anyway, in my version, essentially Jack one day is ambushed by scavengers and he's not able to get away, and they take him to this like underground library. In this version, when he's captured, Beach, that's the Morgan Freeman character, is questioning him, but Beach actually has already guessed, like, you probably remember this. You probably think you've been told this. And Jack is slowly like, yes, I do. But Beach seems to know, like, these very
everything he's remembering,
everything he's remembering. And Beach is like, okay, look, we're trying to get some drones up to the Tet. And we're going to we want to sneak in some fuel cells to blow it up. And he basically explains to Jack that, like, everything that you've been told is a lie about us. And Jack's like, look, I'm not going to help you. You will have to kill me before I say anything or decide to help you. And Beach says, okay, fine enough. And he says, he's like, all right, someone, you come here and shoot him. And then it's another Jack that comes over, takes off his helmet, and it's another Jack who's slightly older. Yeah. And that Jack shoots this Jack and kills him.
That's an awesome setup.
So right now the main character and it's like you've killed the main character.
Yeah.
So meanwhile, so now it's Victoria, and she's back, and she's been watching it, but she sees that his signal's gone.
Yeah.
And she decides she's going to go out and look for him. And she goes to, and in her effort to go and rescue him, she's captured and she's brought to the same place. And they are like, yeah, we killed him. And they explain like, look, we want your help. And she says the same thing, like, well, you're going to have to kill me. I'm not going to help you. But this time Beach is unable to bring himself to have her executed. And he says, I haven't had a Victoria killed before. I've had Jax killed, but I've never had to order an execution of a Victoria. And she's a little puzzled by this. Anyway, what she learns is that she's part of a bioengineering program. So it's not cloning, but they've created these two people who are like, biologically fit. And the idea was that they would be there for 4 years. Yeah. For a long enough stretch of time where they were fit enough that they would be able to function, and then they were essentially taken off-world and expired. Yeah. And so the Jack that's with them, that they have, is Jack that they actually captured a long time ago, who actually decided to help them. So he's actually been able to live like into his 40s. Yeah. Anyway, basically, one of the questions she asks is like, okay, why would they do that? Why would they give us like this memories if they are just going to kill us? Like, why would they do this? And then he says, well, the idea was that giving them a purpose and a hope for a better world, that they would actually be better workers. He says it's a leftover from this post-Reformation Protestant era. He's like, I should know because I'm actually one of the people who designed this program.
Oh, shit.
And he says, like, what happened was the planet was overpopulated, and we basically were able to do this off-world colony, and we did a lottery. We decided it was a system that was going to pick at random who would get to go. And the idea was that by chance, it would end up with the right number of people who had the right qualifications. Like, statistically, we would get equal representation between men and women. Yeah. We'd get, so he's like, so the lottery was set up that way, and I didn't get to go. And that's why I'm still here. But then what happened was the off-world colony started running out of resources, and they came back and started extracting the oil in the ground here. Yeah. And so he basically fills her in on all this history. And what happened after the off-worlders left, Earth fell into chaos and is basically now ruled by, it's kind of like Mad Max. My movie takes more of a flavor of like Mad Max with this other layer of bioengineering, and then there's this off-world colony in space. Anyway, so he's basically like, he is the head. All the factions were at war, but now they've allied together to fight the off-worlders who are now trying to come back and extract their oil. Yeah. And he's essentially the one who's at the head of this council. Anyway, so he basically what's now come to light is that the off-worlders are actually going to come back and are going to start colonizing Earth again. And so all of these factions get together, and they're going to try and gang up to fight back and stop them. I had an idea for a scene where it's Victoria and the older Jack. Like, they've gotten to know each other a little bit more, and he tells her, like, I'm not the same Jack, and you're not the same Victoria.
You're not my Victoria.
Exactly. I'm older than he would have been. Yes, we have the same DNA, but experience has made me into a different person. The whole idea of like nature versus nurture. Yeah. Anyway, Victoria eventually joins in their effort to stop this colony from landing and setting up a colony on Earth. So what they do is they actually send her out on a mission to essentially sabotage. There's a control ship that's up in kind of like in orbit, and she's going to go up with Jack, and they're going to sabotage this ship, and that's going to basically allow them to stop this colony. But what happens is halfway, Victoria and Jack both realize that it's actually a one-way mission. That they've actually both been lied to, and that they're basically going, and their ship is going to explode or something like that, but they're not going to be able to get back. Now, this is where they get there and they get captured, and this is where I'm introducing another character named Archie. Now, Archie is Beach, who's Morgan Freeman. It's actually his nephew.
Oh, damn.
And Archie basically he captures Jack and Victoria. They're both being held captive in separate places. And Victoria, and he's actually, one day Victoria's in captivity. Archie goes to visit her, and he tells her, like, okay, we killed Jack, but we're going to give you another chance. And he basically explains that Beach is actually is just angry that he missed out on the lottery because Archie basically explains to her, like, he actually had a chance to get off the world, but he, for whatever reason, decided he'd take part in this lottery. And because he wasn't picked in the lottery, now he's bitter and he's just trying to get back at us. And Beach actually wants this war with the off-world colony because it's actually legitimized his rule over Earth, essentially, because he's now the one who's in charge. And he says, he also probably told you that when you come here, we kill the Jacks and Victorias. And he's like, let me show you something. And he takes her around the ship, and he finds a bunch of Victorias and Jacks who have actually been living their lives.
Damn.
And some of them actually have families. And he's like, yeah, we don't actually kill them. We actually do let them live. And we did it as an experiment. We weren't sure how it was going to work, but we found they actually, like, they're just like people, and they want to have lives. So this is actually Beach's dream come true. I don't know why he wants to destroy this, but basically he's like, I need you to tell me where they are. And she figures out, like, oh, he's going to just... And he's like, look, if you can tell me where they are, you can have this. We can make another Jack for you, and you can have the thing that you wanted. And she's like, yeah, but it's not my Jack.
It's another Jack, yeah.
Because I was engineered, may seem expendable to all of you, but I'm not going to give those people up and treat them like they're expendable just so I can get what I want.
Yeah.
And so here it's like she's basically like she's essentially like showing that she's got more human empathy than both of these people who created this whole program.
Yeah.
Anyway, somewhere in here, actually, Jack, the older Jack, actually wasn't killed and manages to rescue her.
You mean the
managed
original
to escape.
Jack?
Not the original Jack, the older one that got captured with her.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
The older one that killed her Jack.
Yeah.
But in their attempt to escape, he gets killed. Anyway, here she returns to the base. The mission was a total disaster. She's brought to a meeting with the faction heads, and she basically explains to Beach. She's now sort of like among the higher echelons of these people, and she exposes Beach in front of everybody and saying, like, yeah, he sent us on a one-way mission, and he's actually been using this war as a way to legitimize his position. Essentially, where it ends up going is he essentially gets demoted, and she ends up making her way into this prominent figure in, this is sort of now where the overall series goes.
Yeah.
But where I sort of saw the pilot ending was like, they know that they're actually going to be, they're now at war, and she's essentially going to lead them exile further into the desert, where they're actually going to establish like
their own,
their own colony, and they're going to be able to regroup and then eventually, come back and claim their the land that they've lost, and then keep the off-worlders from taking Earth back. Yeah.
I feel like even your pilot has a lot of stuff that I was like, this could be over the course of a couple episodes.
Oh yeah. As I was going through it, I went, "This is a lot more than I remember writing."
I think just the idea of having the last act be Victoria, from Victoria's perspective of the pilot. So the first act is all set up, meeting Jack, meeting Victoria. They take turns. Jack goes out and then gets shot by himself. That's a great cliffhanger right there. But I also think like you could end it there, or just having him get shot and then having Victoria go after him. Like then we see like, oh, he wasn't the main character; it was Victoria. Like that's a really neat idea. Like that in itself could be an awesome pilot. But I love where you took this. This is really cool.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
It feels more coherent, and you do more with the like cloning idea.
Yeah. Well, in mine, I was trying to stay away from cloning because I was also like, oh, Moon does cloning, so I'm like, well, what if it was just like they engineered people, they created people.
Yeah.
And the idea was like they created someone, and it wasn't like someone who was born, came out of the womb. It was like a person that was created, and then how do you deal with like the implications of what it means to be human that way?
Yeah. Mine has to do more with what I talked about in terms of like dealing with. Well, I'll start this way. All of the references to like that we sort of picked up on like maybe these are references to Tom Cruise's old movies. Those are all in there in mine. They're just done like through cinematography, so they're not in my script. But I want you to be aware of that. Okay. So they're all in there. So mine deals a lot more with like with the droids and the cloning. So here we go. So Jack Harper explains like how the world was messed up, and like he and his comms partner Victoria look after these seawater rigs, and they protect them from like these aliens. But they work for like a group of humans. So in order to make people who work on the defense of these rigs, and there's a whole bunch of them across the planet. They know there's a whole bunch. In order to make sure that they work well on these rigs, they wipe the minds of each of the people so that like, except for like the important information. So they're only expected to be on the ship, or sorry, on the planet Earth for like 2 to 4 years or whatever. However long their time is, they volunteer for it, and then they get their memory wiped. So it stops them from like missing the things that keep them on home. It keeps them like effective, but they can't wipe like all memories because then you would forget how to do things. So so like most of the memories that they have, like each of them have, are like vague things, like of a teacher teaching them how to do something, or like riding a bicycle, like, but never like really faces or anything like that. Just like vague memories of how things happened and how to do those things. So that they can remember how to do them, because that's how we learn. So because of this, Jack and Victoria don't have memory of like specific people, only like vague things. They do remember volunteering for the job, and Jack has a memory that he's never shared. It's a memory of him being like his mother being killed when the war started.
Oh, okay.
And then like the war started when he was on Earth, and then he left to go to the colony, and is now like it was killed by one of the aliens, and then he left to go to the colony, and then volunteered for this job. He has a memory of volunteering as well. So each pair is only responsible for so much amount of time, and then they get to go back to this off-world colony or back to Titan, whatever. And they protect these rigs that clean the ocean water from all the poisons that were caused by the war.
Okay.
Right. So this is all told over like a morning routine. And before Jack leaves, we see him turn and kiss Victoria. And this is against protocol because the pairs aren't supposed... Sorry.
Gesundheit.
The pairs aren't supposed to engage in relationships because it could cause problems.
Oh, okay.
Because their memories have been wiped, so they don't know if they actually have like people they were connecting with beforehand. So now they've started a relationship, and it's like messy, but they're both like, well, in 2 weeks' time we'll know where we were and if we had... because in 2 weeks' time they finish, they'll know if they had like relationships or whatnot, and it's sort of what has kept them sane all this time on these 4 years like on this planet by themselves.
Right.
Jack heads out, and Mission Control asks if they're like working well together, and like they start working. He gets in the helicopter thing. So Jack's job is basically just defense of the rigs. He doesn't maintain the rigs. He's like, that's somebody else's job. So after fixing one of the drone scans Jack and gives his identification. So the drones are basically designed to defend the rigs, but they find biological life and catalog it, as well as find like aliens and kill them if they're still on the planet. And so basically, like, they kill almost any living thing if it's still contaminated, or they catalog it. So they're trying to keep track of, can the Earth be rehabilitated? And that's the job that they're been given, so that people can move back to Earth. And slowly, but surely, they think it's working. So Jack's not contaminated; he doesn't get killed. So during the break, Jack goes off to a restricted location, and we see the house on the lake. And here we see a bunch of things that reference other movies that Tom Cruise has been in. We see him have a dream, and he dreams of another woman. And when he wakes up, he's like, whoa, but it feels like more than a dream. He's like, it feels like a memory, but it's vague, like the other memories I have. But it feels weird. He's like, this is not the first time I've had it either. He heads back, and in the evening, he has like that whole thing with Victoria, and the two of them can make love, and that's super fine because whatever. In the night, Jack dreams... Like, when he's making love to Victoria, he falls asleep, but he dreams he's making love again of this mysterious woman. And he's like, I feel like I'm remembering this more than it's happening. more than a dream. So the next morning, in the night, he wakes up because the one of the rigs has exploded. The ocean machines has exploded, and Mission Control is furious. And so Jack's like, I'm gonna head out and see what happened to the rig. And Mission Control is like, nope, your job is defense. We need to make sure that all the drones are up to top. You need to go and repair anything that's being lost, and we'll send somebody else out to do that. So Jack's like, okay. So while Jack is out there, he comes across a signal beacon, and he can't make sense of it, and neither can Victoria. They're like, I've never seen any kind of information like this, and it doesn't appear to be any kind of signal she recognizes. So so Jack is like, I guess I'm just gonna leave that, and they like cut the signal so that it stops. While Jack is busy repairing the last drone, he sees a thing fall from the sky and head towards where the beacon was, and he follows it and finds a ship, but the drones show up, and he's like, okay, the drones, like, you need to stand down, like, these are humans. And they start scanning all these asleep crew members and kill everyone. None of them survive. And Jack grabs like one of the sleep pods, and he grabs the data drive from one of the sleep pods and puts it in his back pocket, and then he drives off. So he goes back to the tower, and he talks to Victoria, and he's like, I can't believe they did that. Like, and she's like, well, the drones are designed, like, they're programmed to look after anything that's contaminated. So humans were probably contaminated. And he's like, that's weird. They were in sleep pods, and it looked pre-war. Like, so I don't know, man.
Oh, okay.
So he's like, I'm convinced that signal, whatever it was some kind of like signal from the aliens to this human ship. But why would humans respond? It doesn't make sense. So he's got all these questions. So that night before bed, Jack looks through the data file that he put in his back pocket, and he doesn't see anything about any of the subjects being contaminated with like nuclear or poison or anything. So he's like, why would the drones like kill anything like that? And so he's like, I don't understand. So he's like, the next morning I'm going to go and check out the crash site. He decides that. Before he goes to bed, the next morning he wakes up, he like checks out, and he's gone, and Victoria wakes up and sees that he's missing, and she checks his terminal and sees what he was looking at last night, and she's like, he must have gone back to the crash site. And then we cut away from her. So Jack finds the black box from the ship. It's still intact, but he's not the only one looking for it, and he gets like knocked out by the aliens. So he wakes up, all the aliens are there, except they're all humans. Right. And the leader takes off their helmet, and it's the woman from his dreams.
Oh, interesting.
And so she explains, she's like, I want you to reprogram this drone to destroy this off-world space station where Mission Control is. And so not the colony, but just Mission Control. And if and he's like, I'm not going to do that. And she's like, okay, tell you what. You want to see the real answers? Go to that ocean machine we destroyed. You'll see you'll see how it actually blew up. It was us, and you'll see what else is going on. And you'll see we destroyed it with a drone, and we can use another drone to reprogram it, but we need you who knows how to do that, because the drones only follow what their programming is. So Jack is confused as to why these humans would want to stop the ocean machines from like cleaning the oceans. And so this woman is just like, you have to go and find out what it is. And he's like, but before he goes, he's like, wait, who are you? And she's like, my name is Julia. And he's like, okay, but he doesn't say anything about maybe knowing her. So Jack is suspicious. He shows back up at the tower, and he's like, Victoria, I didn't find anything out there. He like lies to her, and he says he's going to check the ocean machine, and Victoria is like, okay, and it's just suspicious. But both Victoria and Mission Control are like, don't go to the ocean machine. That's not what our job is. And Jack's like, I need to go. And so he begins to leave, and Victoria is like, we're no longer an effective team. And Mission Control is like, okay, and sends drones after him. So inside, Jack finds, he goes to the ocean machine and sees it's like blown open, and he gets out and he's looking around, and he finds another dude repairing the ocean machine, like trying to figure out how to bring it back online. And the other dude pulls off his helmet, and it's another Jack, and he's like, whoa. So our Jack is now Jack 49, and this Jack is Jack 52.
Okay.
Just so we know. So Jack 49 is basically like, okay, how can I help? And he's like, they're both kind of like weirded out by the fact that it's each other, but he's like, I'm just here to help. Like, I work for and they're like, this is weird. So Jack 52 says, you can go check the output, because I think the output got clogged, and I that would be helpful. So Jack 49 goes and he checks output, and he sees that the output is all messed up. It's all unclean water, right?
Oh, okay. Okay.
And he's like, yo, this is weird. Like, why is output all contaminated water? It should be clean water. But right as he's like asking this question, Jack 52 shows up and like attacks him, and the two of them are fighting. And he's like, yo, like, because he doesn't trust them. They don't trust each other, right?
Right.
And he's like, yo, who sent you? And he's like, why is the water contaminated? He's like, what are you talking about? Like, the output is always contaminated water. That's how the machines work. And Jack is like, what? And the two of them are fighting. But then the drones show up. And when the drones see that the two Jacks have seen each other, they like terminate both of them. And so Jack 49 manages to get out of the way by using Jack 52 as decoy. So the drones kill Jack 52. He shows back up at the tower and he's like, we have to get out of here. But Victoria is like, I don't trust you. I know that you're here. So she reports to Mission Control that he's back at their living quarters on the tower. But instead of just sending a drone, Mission Control is just like, okay, and blows up the whole tower with Victoria inside.
Whoa.
And Jack just merely manages to escape in his like helicopter thing. And as he crashes, he's like, you know, in his helicopter thing, but he crashes and he has another dream of this woman. And he's like even more enamored with her. He's like, who is Julia? Like, I keep dreaming of making love to her and like, I want to know her and be with her. Like, I know her from somewhere. Who is she? So this time he goes back to the aliens with this new information. He's like, I guess I'm just a clone. And they're like, yeah. And the ocean machines actually don't clean water. They take clean water and then contaminate it and put it back. The humans on the off-world are actually using our resources. They're not cleaning the world. They never had any intention of cleaning the world. They just use up the resources and then move on to the next planet because that's what humans have always done. And this, yeah. Sorry. So yeah, he's like, I'm going to help you then. I'm going to stop this war. We need to save the Earth. And so, you know, they don't want, obviously they were the ones who stayed because they didn't want pollute the Earth. So they were a group of, and the rest of the humans were like all about progress. They're like, we're going to go off world. So they rig up the drone. The same attack can happen to like most of the aliens because they like the drones followed Jack and they attack a lot of the the humans actually that are on the planet. And then Jack and Julia agree to go up to Mission Control and destroy it. So they go together, but it'll take a long time to get up there because it's far away and in space. But Jack has to be the one on the final approach because it has to be the guys under the guise of like reporting to Mission Control after Victoria died and being like, this is what I'm doing, right? And then so then he sleeps first. While he's asleep and Julia's piloting, he remembers that Julia is his wife, right? And so when he awakens, they're close to the pod and they're going to switch. And he says, wait, like, I know that we were married. I remember it because, you know, we were married like on the planet. And then we moved to the colony together. And she's like, no, you definitely don't remember that because the war started like over 100 years ago. So there's no way that you would remember that. And also, I'm not your wife because I've never been married and I've never met you before. And he's like, what? But just then, Mission Control spots them, sends out like a tractor beam that neutralizes the bomb as well with like its advanced technology and brings them inside. So inside, they try to set the bomb off, but it doesn't work because the ship is just that powerful. And Jack sees all these clones of him being made. And he also sees the drones being programmed. And it turns out, basically the parallel I'm trying to drive here is that the Jack clones are being programmed with memories the same way that the drones are being programmed.
I see, right.
And all the memories that he has, like the reason they were vague is because they weren't real. They were just memories that were like implanted into Jack to make sure that he was able to like do things, right? And then so he was like, well, what about this like memory of my wife, Julia? Well, it turns out, and we actually can see another human come out and actually be like, actually, the memory of Julia was simply because we knew she was the leader of the rebels down on Earth, and it was like a backup program. We just buried it deep in your mind, and because we knew it would draw you to her, and it did, and then you brought her to us. So, but all of your memories were just programming.
Nice.
And so then this human is just like, you did a really good job, Jack, and he kills Jack and Julia. And then back down on planet Earth, we see a new Jack and Victoria are sent out to replace the 49th tower, and they fall into the same patterns, and we even see Victoria and Jack kiss each other, as though that was all planned too. And that's the end.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. I went for a dark one this time, but I really wanted to, and so the reason I wanted to bring up this idea of like programming and memories is also because like when we see all of the paraphernalia that draws us to Tom Cruise's history, that's also like our memories, like as the audience. I don't know, that would be hard to pull off, but the idea was to try and be like, how much of what we're seeing is actually just us remembering Tom Cruise, through the eyes of like, idea. Yeah. I don't know if that came across all that well, but it's hard to put in a script. But I really wanted to play with this idea. At one point, Tom Cruise's character says, these are my memories. That was what I was programmed to do. And I was like, yo, he's programmed like the droids. And so I really tried to get that kind of thing across. Like he's programmed like the droids, except we use memories for programming. And the whole mind wipe is just a way to be like, we did this for your own good. But what it actually is because the memories help us like learn things. That's how we learn. That's how we know things. And so they're only remembering what they need. And then I don't know. And then the Julia program, the Julia program was just like a backup.
It's basically a trick essentially.
Yeah. The whole thing was a trick, and he was basically a drone, just like the other drones. Yeah. And all the other Jack clones are also drones. Yeah.
Nice.
I know that's kind of dark.
No, I like it. I mean, I don't know.
I thought it worked
downer
pretty
endings.
well.
Yeah, I think it's warranted. Yeah, I mean, from the way you took it, it fits. Yeah.
Yeah. Any last minute thoughts about Oblivion?
No, that's it for me.
Yeah. I thought this was a little too long. Great ideas, not great follow through, but I would watch it again. It was fun.
I wouldn't watch it again. But
okay.
There are things about it that I admire.
We've definitely done better sci-fi movies on CineMasters.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, where can people find you then?
I have a website. It's www.nathanieldraper.com. I'm also on Letterboxd at DraperNate.
Yeah, you can find my band Robot Philosopher wherever you listen to awesome music, and right here on YouTube. You can also catch awesome episodes of our podcast, like this one, every Tuesday. You can also catch our video essay series, of which there is lots of great episodes up there, called This Is a Thing, every other Thursday, and bonus cast whenever I feel like putting those out. You can catch all that right here on CineMasters Ultimate Timeline. Peace out.
Thanks for listening.